Starting over is one of the most painful things that you can do. Not because new beginnings are always bad. Starting over hurts because it forces you to admit that something you invested in is no longer giving you life. Something that you built, you carried it, you hoped that it would grow. Something that you believed would eventually be the one, would eventually become something. And now you have to look at it honestly and say, this is not working. That is not easy, because sometimes the hardest thing to leave is not failure. Sometimes the hardest thing to leave is something that looks like it should be working. It has history, something that has numbers, it has proof, something that makes you feel like leaving it would actually be a stupid decision, like leaving it would be foolish. And that is exactly how I felt about my old YouTube channel. I have built this channel for a very long time. It still has over 7,000 subscribers. It is monetized, still monetized. And for anyone who understands YouTube, you know that monetization is not a small thing to achieve. Every YouTuber strives to achieve monetization. Starting a YouTube channel and getting it monetized takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of consistency. It takes effort. It takes the kind of hope that people do not always understand. So when you finally reach that point when your channel is monetized, when you have subscribers, 7,000 of them, when you have built something from nothing, the idea of walking away from it just feels irresponsible. It feels like you are abandoning proof. It feels like you're leaving behind something that many people are still trying to reach. And yet, that is exactly what I have chosen to do. I have chosen to start over. I have chosen to leave a monetized YouTube channel behind and begin again, a fresh start, a new channel. I didn't leave my old channel because I am done with creating YouTube now. So here I am at Between Homes, and this video is not even just about YouTube. It is about starting over. It is about hope. It is about knowing when something you built can no longer carry you towards where you are going. It is about the courage to begin again. It takes courage, even when people may not understand why. I'm sure you're watching and asking yourself, why? And maybe if you are an African abroad, because this channel is all about Africans abroad, if you are in the diaspora, if you have ever moved to another country, if you have ever left home to rebuild your life somewhere very unfamiliar, you may understand this feeling more than most people, because moving abroad is always starting over. But for many Africans, moving abroad is not just starting from zero. It is starting from negative. And I say that really carefully because people often romanticize migration. They say you moved abroad, you went to Dubai, you went to Europe, America, you went to Canada, you left Africa, and it's as if the moment you leave, life automatically starts improving. But for many Africans, the journey abroad begins with sacrifice. A lot of money is spent before you even step on the plane. Some people save money for years before they can travel. Some people borrow money. I'm one of those people. Some families contribute. They come together and send one person abroad. A lot of Africans sell land. You heard that right. If you are African, you probably already know this, but if you're watching me and you're not an African, I would like to inform you that a lot of Africans sell land, real estate, property. to be able to travel abroad. Some sell business assets. I know someone who had a thriving business, you could call it. They had a barber shop and they were doing well. From their barber shop, they had even bought some property in terms of land, built a few rentals, but they sold the whole business. Some use all their savings. I used all my savings and then borrowed to be able to travel abroad. Some take loans, so many take loans. Some leave behind jobs, relationships, comfort, community, and identity, all for a chance to rebuild somewhere else. That is why I say many Africans abroad do not start from zero. We start from negative. Because before we even begin earning, something has already been lost. Money has been spent. We have created debt. We have sold off the property that we had. We are striving hard to obtain property. It's not easy to obtain property. Expectations have been raised. We travel on expectations. The family pressure starts as soon as you start thinking about traveling abroad. Everyone is watching you. People are waiting. Family is hoping alongside you as you're hoping for a new life. And now you arrive in a new country carrying not only your suitcase, but that weight of everything that was sacrificed. That is not zero. To me, that is negative. If you're drawing a curve from the x-axis, from the y-axis, you go down. It's negative. And yet, what carries people through that kind of beginning is hope that this sacrifice will mean something. Hope that the land that you sold will become better in future. You'll be able to buy a bigger chunk. Hope that borrowed money will be paid off. And then you start saving. Hope that visa will lead to work. A lot of Africans who travel to the Middle East travel without jobs secured. So you get a visit visa, a tourist visa. You carry hope. Hope is the only real thing that you carry, that you are assured. Hope that the job that you get will lead to stability. Hope that stability will lead to some dignity, because you might end up, hope that leaving home will not become the story of regret. So many people regret traveling abroad for so many reasons. Hope is what makes people start over. And maybe that is why this moment with my YouTube channel feels so personal to me, because I know what it means to carry hope into a new beginning. I know that it means to leave something behind, not because it has no value. It still has value. I have learned so many lessons from that YouTube channel, but because it can no longer produce the future that you're trying to build. Sometimes people sell land back home, not because the land is useless. The land has value. The land, it may have history. The land may have emotional meaning. Some people sell land because in Africa, say in Uganda specifically, we bury in our own land. Emotional history. The land may represent family, security, identity. But if that land is not producing anything, if it is just sitting there, you inherited the land, it cannot pay school fees if you have some kids. If you sold it, you could not cover all the school fees for your kids, for example, or for yourself. Cannot create a job from your land. You're not able to. You cannot open a door. You cannot move life forward in that season. That's when someone may choose to sell it and invest in hope to travel abroad. To an outsider, that may look like, okay, that's gambling. And sometimes, honestly, it is gambling, because we have seen people move abroad and fail. Many fail. We have seen people spend literally everything to travel and then return with absolutely nothing. Because the moment you travel, you automatically go into negative. So if the abroad doesn't yield and you have to return, we have seen people sell property, borrow money, leave home, and still not succeed abroad. We have seen people start over and lose everything. So yes, hope can feel like a gamble, but what is the alternative in this case? To stay forever in something that is not producing, to hold on, to prove while slowly dying on the inside, to keep saying, at least I have this, at least I have a channel of 7,000 subscribers with no views. When this is no longer moving you or propelling you forward, there is no growth at all. That is the question I had to ask myself about my old channel. Yes, it was monetized, still monetized. Yes, it has subscribers. Yes, it has a lot of history. Yes, I have invested years into this channel, but for more than 2 years, I think, I felt really stuck. The views were not moving. The niche I had changed many times, in trying to revive and pivot, and the algorithm did not understand what the channel was about anymore. And if I'm honest, maybe even I had changed too many times, because sometimes we talk about the algorithm as if it is the only confused one, but creators can also be confused. People can also be confused. Life can also make you move in many directions before you finally find the one that feels true. And that has been part of my struggle. I have had so many interests, so many, admittedly, so many ideas, so many stories, so many things that I thought I would become, Sometimes I would start something with so much passion, then I would feel pulled in one direction. Sometimes I would have like a big vision but struggle to follow one clean line long enough for the algorithm, or should I say the world or the audience, to understand it. I have wondered many times whether I may have some undiagnosed ADHD. I'm not saying this is a diagnosis. I have not been formally diagnosed, but I have lived with patterns that made me question it. The difficulty of focusing on one thing, the constant movement of ideas, the excitement of starting, say, let's not think about that. The struggle of sustaining, the feeling that my mind is always running in several directions, the frustration of knowing I have potential, but sometimes feeling like I cannot organize the potential into one clear path. And when you are a content creator, that can be both a gift and a curse, because ideas are not a problem. I have ideas. Great ideas. I have stories, countless stories. I have things that I want to say. I can take my own life, make sense of it, and turn into something that can guide someone else, like my own life's experience. That feels very natural to me. But then the direction, the consistency, structure, staying in one niche long enough and not changing to another niche, teaching the algorithm what I'm about. Take this video, for example. Obviously, this is a video about, it could be just about YouTube, starting over, starting a new channel after an old one seems stranded, after an old one seems shadow banned. Because, it happens, apparently. YouTube channels can get shadow banned. It could be just about that. But this new channel is all about between homes. So I had to take that life's experience and connect it towards between homes, which is ideally Africans abroad When you leave your home country or your home continent, it is still home. And when you travel abroad, you end up spending a big part of your life in another country. So this other country also becomes home. Hence, between homes, two homes. So that has been the challenge for me, teaching the algorithm what I'm about, teaching the audience what I'm about, staying in one niche long enough for everything to work out. And maybe some of you will understand this. Maybe you are not a content creator. Maybe your struggle is not YouTube. Maybe your struggle is just career, you keep changing. Maybe it is just migration. Especially for Africans, we keep considering different countries. Especially after you travel the first time, you go to Saudi Arabia, you reach in Saudi, you work for 2 years or 1 year, and you're thinking about traveling to the United Arab Emirates. Even in the United Arab Emirates, you don't sit down, you're thinking, okay, I should go to Canada, I need to go to the US. Or maybe it is just school. You are a student and you keep changing which subjects you're interested in. You keep changing schools, you keep thinking about, I need to change this, change that. Or maybe it is business. Maybe it is starting over after a failure. Maybe it is trying to rebuild your life abroad while feeling like your mind, your money, your emotions, and your responsibilities are all pulling you in different directions. And maybe you have also asked yourself, why can't I just get it together? Why do I keep starting and then stopping? Why do I know what I want but struggle to build consistency? We all know what we want. We always feel like I know what I want success. Why do I always feel like I'm always almost there but not quite? These are painful questions because they can make you feel lazy. They can make you feel unserious. They can make you feel like you are wasting your own potential. Felt that a lot of times. But sometimes what looks like lack of discipline is actually a deeper struggle with focus, with identity, sometimes environment, or emotional pressure, survival. And I think this is especially important for Africans abroad because when you move abroad, you do not always have the luxury of figuring yourself out at a pace. You can't pace yourself. You are under pressure as soon as you land. You need money. You need rent. You need documents. You need a job. You need to support people back home. You need to survive. You need to make this sacrifice of traveling abroad worth it. You need to become stable as quickly as possible. And if you are someone who already struggles with focus, like yours truly, overwhelm, anxiety, and you have possible ADHD, moving abroad can intensify everything because now your mind is not only managing your creative ideas, it is also managing survival. It is managing fear. It is managing expectations of yourself and everyone else. Then there is loneliness. I had to throw that one in there. I struggle with loneliness, if you can't tell. It is managing the guilt, the survival guilt. When we leave Africa, we get that survival guilt. It is managing the pressure to prove that leaving home was worth it. You don't want to be the one who traveled abroad out of your group, out of your neighbors or your siblings or your classmates and schoolmates. You are the one who traveled abroad, but as it turns out, everyone else did so much better in life than you. So the pressure to prove that abroad is worth it, and that pressure can make starting over feel even harder. But here's the thing that I'm learning. starting over does not mean you failed. Sometimes starting over means you finally got honest with yourself. Starting over means you stopped lying to yourself. Yeah, starting over means that you stopped forcing something to work simply because you invested in it. Some of you in relationships, I'm thinking of you now. Starting over means you stopped confusing history with destiny. And that is a big one. History is not always destiny. Just because you built something does not mean you must stay in it forever. Just because you invested time does not mean you must keep investing more time into something that is no longer aligned. Get what I'm saying? Wink. Just because people know you for something does not mean that it is all that you are allowed to become. Just because you started one way does not mean you have to end that way, And that is what I had to accept with my old channel. That channel was part of my journey. It was part of my identity. It taught me. It gave me experience. It gave me confidence. It proved that I could create, for one. It proved that I could build something from nothing. Build a channel from nothing, but it was no longer the right container for the woman I'm becoming. And sometimes the container matters, You can have the right message in the wrong container. Sometimes you can have the right voice in the wrong platform. You can have the right dream, but it is attached to your old identity. And at some point, if you want the dream to actually live, you may have to change the container. That is what Between Homes is for me. It is not just a new YouTube channel. It is a new container for me. It is a clear one. It is more intentional. A channel that can hold my stories, my lessons, my diaspora experience, my life in Dubai, my mistakes, my observations, my advice, reflections, and my desire to help Africans abroad and all those Africans who are planning to move abroad. My plan is to help them make better decisions. The channel allows me to stop being everywhere and start being somewhere. And that matters to me, especially right now. Because one of the most important lessons is starting over is that you cannot carry everything into the new beginning. If you carry the same confusion, you will create the same problem. If you carry the same lack of structure, you'll create the same stagnation that you've had. If you carry the same fear, you will shrink. If you carry the same need to please everyone, performative for everyone, your direction will disappear again and again. So starting over requires a bit of sacrifice. This is not only sacrifice of leaving something behind, but the sacrifice of becoming more focused. For me, that means accepting that this channel must have a clear purpose. Africans abroad, life in Dubai, as an Africans in the diaspora life, or moving abroad from Africa, essentially being between homes and starting over. That is Africans about money, jobs, accommodation, family pressure, black tax, homelessness of Africans abroad, survival of Africans abroad, stability, transformation, that is the lane. And now I have to stay in this lane long enough for the channel to actually grow, long enough for the audience to understand, long enough for YouTube algorithm to understand, long enough for the message to become strong. And maybe this is where the teaching begins. Because if you are starting over, whether in content or business or career or migration, you are starting over in life, the first thing you need is honesty. You need to tell yourself the truth about what is no longer working, not what looks good, not what you can explain to people, not what makes sense, what is truly working. For me, the truth was, my old channel was monetized, but it was stagnant. That was the truth. You post every single day, you don't see any views, you don't see any improvement, you don't see any impressions. Views is one thing. Maybe the video wasn't good enough, people did not click on it. But if you're not getting impressions, yes, it had subscribers, 7,000 plus. And if all the 7,000 were not even daring, not even half, not even a quarter, it had history but not enough movement. It had proof but not enough fruit. And sometimes something can have history, proof, but no fruit. That is a very painful realization. Is it still producing? Nope, no fruit. Then let's cut down the tree. And if something is not producing, you have to decide whether to prune it. Maybe when you prune it, some new leaves will sprout, or rebuild it, or release it. The second thing you need, when you are starting over, is humility, because starting over can make you feel very small again. You don't understand what it means, the difference of 7,000 and 0 subscribers. There is a very big difference. You go from being someone who had the numbers to someone asking people to please subscribe again. You go from a channel with over 7,000 subscribers to a channel trying to build the first real audience. You go from monetization to patience. Monetization takes time, months. So this wasn't an easy decision for me. You go from, I already achieved this, I could put it on my CV and get a job. Yeah, I have said or boasted about my channel in interview rooms. You should hire me. I built a channel up to 7,000 subscribers, monetized it. Give me the job, and they would be impressed, because it's not easy. It is humbling, but humility is not humiliation. Starting small again does not mean you are nothing. It means you are building from a wiser place. You're building from experience. The third thing you need is a better system. Hope is important, but hope alone is not enough. For those of you getting on those planes, hope is important, absolutely, but hope alone is not enough. This is where many of us make mistakes. We start over with emotion, but no structure. We say this time will be different, but we do not change the system. And if the system does not change, what happens? The outcome may never change either. For me, that means this new channel needs clear topics, searchable titles, a consistent niche. Everything that I learned for the past 5 years should be applied here. Better descriptions, a clear upload strategy, consistency, a stronger message, a better understanding of the audience. Not because creativity should be robotic, but because creativity also needs structure if it is going to grow. And this applies to moving abroad. Right now, I just thought about some of the best celebrities, the most talented artists. Everyone has a style. You think R&B, there are certain artists that you can categorize in R&B, especially some artists who could do both. They could, but they don't. They have their style, the niche. So this whole thing applies to moving abroad too. You cannot move abroad just on hope alone. No. Hope may get you on the plane, but systems keep you alive after you land. You need a financial plan, a job plan, rent plan, a visa plan, a backup plan, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan Z, backup plan. Skills is the only selling hotcake. I don't want to get off topic. Coming back to topic. You need a plan. You need structure, period. Because starting over without structure is how hope becomes suffering. You traveled with hope, it has now become suffering because you don't have structure. The other thing you need is patience. This may be the hardest part, especially for me right now. Patience, I'm struggling with it. Because when you start over, you want proof quickly, you want to justify quickly. You want the new thing to work immediately so you can feel like the sacrifice was worth it. You want the views. You want the subscribers. Speaking of, can you subscribe, please? If it's not too much to ask. You want the income. My channel was monetized. I had an income on that channel. If you're moving abroad, you need the job, the stability, the breakthrough, the sign that you made the right decision. But new beginnings, they take time. Even when you're doing the right thing, it takes time. A seed does not become a tree because you are anxious. No, you can water it. Man, my English keeps disappearing on me. You can water it, you can protect it, guard it, you can give it light, you can give it care, but you cannot bully that fruit into growing overnight. And this is where many of us lose the hope. And if you are an undiagnosed potential ADHD, this is when you would pivot and lose direction. This is when you lose hope. Then start over. Do not see results quickly. Panic and start thinking, maybe I made a mistake. Then you go back to the old thing. Story of my life. Oh, quit. You have been in the abroad, any country really, for 2 years and things are not really working out. What do? You quit. You think you should go to another country or go back home. But sometimes the new beginning needs time to prove itself. That is why you need to build with hope and a boatload of patience. The other thing you need is to stop romanticizing the old thing just because the new thing is hard. Now, this one is very, very important. When new beginnings become difficult, the old thing starts looking better than it actually was. You start remembering only the good parts of your old life. It could be your old channel, your old job, your old country. You forget why you left. You forget the frustration that you had, the struggle, the stagnation that you had. You forget the emptiness. You forget the reason you actually decided to start over. This happens in migration. Someone moves abroad and struggles, then starts romanticizing going back home. And yes, home has beautiful things. To be honest, home has family. Home may have comfort. Home may have identity. But sometimes people forget why we left. We forget the unemployment, the limited opportunities. We forget the pressure. We forget the feeling of being stuck. So when you start over, remember the full truth, not just the pain of beginning, of new start. Remember why the old season could no longer hold you, could no longer push you forward. The other thing you need is courage to carry hope again. Because starting over is in itself an admission that we have done this before. We have lived before. but now we are starting over. Because after a disappointment, hope becomes harder. I had an old channel. I started it with a lot of hope. I hope to grow. And then I became disappointed. Now I'm starting over. Now hope is a little bit harder because of the previous bad experience. When you have tried before and it did not work, hoping again feels risky. When you have built something before and it became stagnant, building again feels a little bit scary. When you have moved abroad before and failed, returning or trying again feels scary. When you have invested in something and it did not produce, investing again feels like madness. But hope is not foolish when it is paired with wisdom acquired. Hope is not foolish when it is paired with the lessons. Is not foolish if you have strategy. Hope is not foolish when you are not repeating the same mistakes blindly. And that is what I'm trying to do with Between Homes. I'm not just hoping blindly. I'm hoping with lessons, with clarity. I'm hoping with a stronger niche, a niche that I now live. I'm hoping with a better understanding of what I want to build, of what community I want to build. I'm hoping with the awareness that this may take time. I'm hoping while knowing that I'm leaving something behind. And that is emotional because starting over always involves grief. You have to grieve your old life. Even when you're excited, you grieve the time that you spent. You grieve the version of you that believed the old thing would work. You have to grieve the effort. You grieve the expectations that you had. You grieve what could have been. But grief does not mean the decision is wrong. No. Sometimes grief simply means the old thing mattered. It was important to you. My old channel mattered. It was not useless. It was not a waste. It was part of my Becoming by Michelle Obama. But now, actually I did read Becoming. Now that I'm thinking about it, that was a very good read. It shaped a lot of some of who I am today. The fact that I'm able to step aside and start over and accept to become. Now I need to build something that matches where I'm going. And maybe that is the message that I want to leave with you. Don't be afraid to start over. If staying where you are is slowly costing you your future, it's chipping away from your future. Do not be afraid to, release something just because other people think it looks valuable. It's 7,000 subscribers, 7,000 people. Imagine a room full of 7,000 people. Do not be afraid to begin again. Not because you are embarrassed to look like a beginner. Do not be afraid to invest in hope again. But also don't start blindly. Start with the lessons. Carry all the lessons. Start over with structure, honesty, patience. I'm struggling with patience a lot. I keep thinking about I need to be patient. I should write a few mantras around this room to keep reminding myself every single day. Patience. You need strategy. Start over with a clear understanding of who you are and what you are building. Because starting over is not always failure. I didn't fail. Sometimes starting over is the most honest form of growth. Starting over is how you stop carrying around that burden of the old confusion. Sometimes starting over is how you finally align with your purpose. Yes, finally. Sometimes starting over is how you give yourself another chance. And if you are an African abroad, if you move to another country and you feel like you are starting over from negative, I want you to hear me. Your sacrifice is not meaningless. Your hope for a good life is not foolish. Your beginning may be painful, most likely very painful, but it's not the end. Maybe you sold land, you borrowed money, your family contributed, everyone supported you. Maybe you left comfort. I used to joke about how big my bed was. I've had to leave to sleep on an upper bunk bed, one that was very close to the AC. And if there is one AC, let me not get into that story. Maybe you left identity. Maybe you left people who loved you. You were married. You had to leave someone behind. Maybe you arrived abroad and things did not work out the way that you expected. Maybe you feel like you are rebuilding from below zero. But as long as you are still here, as long as you're still learning, as long as you are still willing to adjust, as long as you have not surrendered your hope completely, they could take everything away from you. You could lose everything, but don't you ever lose hope. This new channel, for me, Between Homes, is my new beginning. It is my hope for everything, the person I'm becoming. It is my hope in public. It is my it is me building again, but this time with more truth, with more clarity, with more structure, with more purpose. So if you are here from the beginning, that would be really surprising. But I want to say thank you. And if you subscribe to the old channel before, even better, you are my family. You're my community. Thank you for finding me here as well. We are starting over together. Starting over is scary. It is so humbling, I'll tell you that much. It is very emotional, but sometimes starting over is exactly what you need to finally grow. So I'll see you in the next video. It was a pleasure talking throughout this video, talking to you. This video specifically was a reflection and an affirmation for me to fully understand what this really means for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.